From rock-carved churches to entire hidden cities, get ready for a journey through mysterious passages, historic tunnels, and scenery that looks like it came straight out of a science fiction movie. Shall we begin? Derinkuyu Underground City. Nurki. Imagine discovering, by chance, a hole in your house floor that leads to a massive complex of secret corridors. That's exactly what happened in Turkey's Cappadocia region in the 1960s. Someone decided to check why their basement had strange airflow and stumbled upon a tunnel leading to a true underground city. Derinkuyu is a maze of floors built to house thousands of people, complete with stables, wine cellars, dining halls, and even schools. Its corridors reach depths of more than 280 feet, and estimates suggest the structure was started by the Hittites back in the 8th century BC. The most curious fact is that everything was designed to withstand invasions, with stone doors that could only be opened from the inside. Imagine living in a place that protected entire generations, where each passage might lead to an environment full of stories and legends. Theories suggest that Derinkuyu was part of an even larger network, interconnecting other underground cities in the region. If you walk through the tunnels today, you'll feel the ancestral atmosphere hanging in the air, and believe me, there's nothing quite like seeing a dining hall carved into rock, dozens of feet below ground level. Hidden Church of Saint Jean, France. Let's head to France, specifically the Occitanie region. There lies an architectural gem called the Church of Saint Jean of Aubeterre, or simply the monolithic Church of Aubeterre. You can hardly notice what's hidden below the surface until you enter through a discreet door at street level. Once inside, visitors encounter an impressive vertical hall carved directly into the limestone. This place dates back to the 7th century when local monks decided to dig and create a spiritual retreat space. The size of the main vault leaves many visitors speechless. Over 65 feet in height, giving the space the feel of an underground Gothic cathedral. Can you imagine the dedication and technique required to excavate an entire sanctuary without the tools we have today? What makes it special is that this church remained practically hidden for centuries until being rediscovered in the 20th century. At the end of the nave, there's a reliquary where bones of saints or sacred artifacts were supposedly kept. And, although it's a religious site, the atmosphere is almost mystical, as if the rock held the secrets of those who carved it so many centuries ago. Salt Concert Hall, Romania. Moving to Eastern Europe, Romania holds some surreal places. One of them is the Turda salt mine, Salina Turda, which besides extracting salt for hundreds of years, now functions as a leisure and cultural space. Ready to see an underground complex that houses even an amusement park. Indeed. In the tunnels, there's an amphitheater, a mini museum telling the history of salt mining, and even a lake where people can go boating. The main chamber has such powerful acoustics that it occasionally hosts musical performances. It's as if the music echoes off the salty walls, creating an otherworldly effect. Initially built to supply the local salt economy, the mine became an unmissable tourist attraction. The structure descends more than 330 feet deep and still preserves the old extraction equipment as if time had stood still. And the most unusual fact, there's a Ferris wheel inside. That's right, imagine spinning in the dark, illuminated only by lights reflecting off salt crystals. It's like being in a parallel dimension, full of history and fun. If you want a unique experience, they say the air quality inside the mine is very good for the respiratory system, a natural salt spa, so to speak. Coober Pedy, Australia. Moving to a completely different setting, the middle of the Australian desert. Coober Pedy is known as the world's opal capital, not the opium poppy, but opal, the precious gem. The region is so hot on the surface that residents found an ingenious solution to deal with extreme temperatures: build underground houses. And not just simple homes, but truly comfortable dwellings with bedrooms, living rooms, kitchens, and even churches and a local bar, all excavated in the hillsides and rock formations of the area. The heat outside can easily reach 113 degrees Fahrenheit, while underground, the temperature remains mild and stable, almost like natural air conditioning. One of the most captivating curiosities is that many residents continue exploring walls and tunnels in search of opals, literally living on top of a colorful fortune. Walking through Coober Pedy is like visiting another planet. In the desert's arid landscape, you see few structures on the surface and discover an entire world hidden underground. The city has also been a setting for science fiction films due to the almost Martian appearance of the environment. Catacombs of Paris, France. Back to Europe, we now have a place with a macabre air, the Paris Catacombs. Initially created as Roman quarries, these tunnels spread over more than 125 miles beneath the French capital. In the late 18th century, due to overcrowded cemeteries, the government decided to transfer the bones of millions of people there. The result? A gloomy labyrinth where walls and corridors are made of perfectly aligned skulls and femurs, forming a truly sinister mosaic. Although the official catacombs visit is limited to a tourist route, some venture illegally into unknown parts in search of secret bars and mysterious passages. It's not recommended, as there are risks of collapse and disorientation. The most impactful thing is the notion of how many lives are stored in the tunnels, estimated to be the remains of more than 6 million people. While it's a fascinating destination for history, it's also a silent reminder of life's fragility. Bochum Mining Museum, Germany. In Germany, amid an industrial region that was once the heart of coal production, stands the Bochum Mining Museum. It might seem like just another museum, but what sets it apart is a section that extends through underground tunnels, so visitors can experience firsthand what miners' lives were like. There, you can explore replica galleries, see heavy machinery, and understand the daily challenges of those who spend hours in the depths of the earth. The simulation is so realistic that visitors hear drilling sounds and smell oil and metal. The place was created to preserve the memory of an economic activity that shaped the culture and landscape of the Ruhr region. In the past, thousands of workers depended on these mines to support their families, and many cities emerged precisely around this industry. Today, the museum has become an attraction that combines history, technology, and a touch of adventure. After all, descending in a claustrophobic elevator and walking through dark tunnels is practically reliving the past. In the present, rock-hewn churches of Lalibela, Ethiopia. Ever thought about an entire city built inside volcanic rocks? In Lalibela, Ethiopia, there's a complex of monolithic churches considered a UNESCO World Heritage Site. They're not in caves, but were carved from top to bottom, as if a giant sculptor had cut out the rock to form temples. The result is a sacred place whose architecture impresses even the most skeptical. There are no fitted stone blocks, but entire structures carved from a single rock, including columns, windows, and capitals, all connected by walkways and tunnels. History says the churches were built around the 12th century, under orders from King Lalibela, who wanted to create a new Jerusalem in Africa. Most intriguing is the precision of details, even with the limitations of tools from that era. Walking through the corridors and cloisters is like traveling through time, surrounded by silence and devotion. Despite its historical and religious importance, Lalibela remains a destination relatively unexplored by conventional tourists, making the experience even more authentic. Shanghai Underground Hotel, China. Yes, there is a hotel built at the bottom of an abandoned quarry in Shanghai, China. It's the Intercontinental Shanghai Wonderland, also known as Shimao Wonderland. The idea was to use the immense hole left by rock exploitation and transform it into a luxury resort with 18 floors facing the abyss, 16 of them below ground level. The view from the rooms is of an artificial lake that fills the quarry, and some suites are even submerged, allowing you to observe fish through the glass, as if you were in a giant aquarium. The hotel was inaugurated after almost a decade of construction, and the project required impressive engineering solutions. After all, it's not simple to stabilize the walls of a deep cliff and still create a luxurious environment with artificial waterfalls and suspended green areas. For those seeking adventure with comfort, there are activities like bungee jumping and rock climbing on the rocky walls. It's like staying in a futuristic oasis, just a few miles from one of the largest metropolises on the planet, but with the feeling of being isolated from the outside world. Siu Chua Tunnels, Vietnam. Located near Ho Chi Minh City, the Cu Chi Tunnels are a true underground maze that gained fame during the Vietnam War. Initially built by Viet Cong guerrillas to hide from enemy forces, these tunnels became a complex network of more than 125 miles in length. This is where fighters slept, stored supplies, set up weapon workshops, and even improvised hospitals. At times, they emerged to the surface only for surprise attacks and quickly disappeared back underground. To survive in the tunnels, one had to face extreme heat, lack of oxygen, and the possibility of ambushes. The entrances were tiny, making it difficult for enemy soldiers to pass through, and various traps were placed along the corridors. Today, much of this system has transformed into a tourist attraction. It's possible to walk through some sections, widened for visitors, giving a sense of what life was like in those claustrophobic corridors. The most impressive fact? There were deep rooms where strategic meetings took place, literally right under the nose of the enemy army. Secret tunnels of Dover, United Kingdom. In southern England, amid the iconic White Cliffs of Dover, lies a set of tunnels that have served different military purposes over the centuries. These underground corridors began as shelters during the Napoleonic period, but gained fame primarily during World War II. It was there that the famous rescue of Allied troops at Dunkirk, Operation Dynamo, was planned, under the constant risks of German bombings. What's special about these tunnels is that they were adapted multiple times to meet military needs. In some parts, there are rooms for accommodation, ammunition depots, and even command centers equipped with cutting-edge technology for the time, including telegraph and radio communications. Currently, part of this complex can be visited. Tourists explore preserved environments with war maps, vintage radios, and even beds used by officers. Walking through there is like diving into a living chapter of British history, feeling the walls of damp chalk that support the peninsula above. Wilicka Salt Mine, Poland. If the Turda salt mine already seemed spectacular, the Wilicka Salt Mine, near Krakow, takes this concept to another level. Dating from the 13th century, it's so extensive that it covers almost 180 miles of tunnels, divided into various levels. Commercial salt production ended in the 20th century, but the site remains active for tourist and cultural purposes, having been declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site. One of the major attractions there is St. Kinga's Chapel, a gigantic hall sculpted entirely in rock salt, including the altar, chandeliers, and statues of saints. With each step, visitors are surprised by sculptures and thematic galleries that tell the history of mining and Poland itself. And there's a curious detail. The walls are edible, although it's forbidden to lick or break off pieces, naturally. Another highlight is the mine's microclimate, considered beneficial for those suffering from respiratory problems. It's not uncommon to find people doing therapy sessions there in the silence of the depths. Gran Sasso Lab, Italy. Although not a conventional tourist attraction, the Gran Sasso National Laboratory in Italy deserves a place on this list for its scientific relevance. Located in the Gran Sasso Massif in the Apennines, it's considered the world's largest underground laboratory, dedicated to particle physics research. And why build it under 4,600 feet of rock? Simple. The thick geological layer acts as a shield against background cosmic radiation, enabling extremely sensitive experiments in search of rare subatomic particles. To reach the complex, you must pass through road tunnels that resemble any underground road. However, crossing specific doors leads to enormous chambers filled with advanced technological instruments. These are gigantic detectors searching for answers to questions like the nature of dark matter and neutrino physics. Although visits are restricted to special occasions, the fact that there's a high-tech center hidden amid mountains adds an extra dose of mystery. If you ever decide to study the great questions of the universe, there's a chance you might end up spending time in the Gran Sasso Laboratories, tunnels beneath Edinburgh Castle, Scotland. In Edinburgh, a city full of legends and dark stories, Edinburgh Castle stands majestically on a rock formation called Castle Rock. But what many people don't know is that besides the dungeons and cellars, there are tunnels that snake through the underground of the old city. Although part of this network is legendary and shrouded in myths, there's talk of a bagpiper who mysteriously disappeared while exploring a secret corridor. There's evidence of passages that connected the castle to other strategic areas, used for escapes or troop movements. Various guided tours of Edinburgh's old area include excursions to cellars and vaults, where you discover traces of how the medieval population lived. In some parts, time seems to have frozen, with stone walls blackened by fireplace smoke and marks from tools used centuries ago. The feeling is that, at any moment, an echo might emerge from the footsteps of those who once used these mazes to survive in the turbulent times. Grand Canyon Cavern Hotel, United States. For those seeking an unusual lodging experience, there's a hotel located inside a cave in the Grand Canyon, Arizona. More precisely, it's a unique room set up in the Grand Canyon Caverns, a famous tourist attraction for its underground tours. Imagine descending 230 feet in an elevator and, upon arrival, finding a suite equipped with a bed, table, armchairs, and even electricity. All this surrounded by millions of years of rock formations. The humidity is extremely low, which helps preserve the environment. Local legend says that, in Cold War times, these tunnels and caves could serve as nuclear shelters, such as the solidity of the rocks and the depth of the location. Today, the main attraction is sleeping in absolute silence, broken only by the occasional sounds of water, drops, or wind circulating through distant passages. It's a sensation of total isolation, almost like being on another planet, but still with the comfort of a conventional hotel. Churchill War Rooms, United Kingdom. In the heart of London, there's a location that played a crucial role during World War II, the Cabinet War Rooms, also known as Churchill War Rooms. Although not as large as some other tunnel systems, the historical value of this underground complex is undeniable. It was there that Prime Minister Winston Churchill and his strategic advisors drew up plans to defeat the Nazi threat, with maps covering the walls and telephones dedicated to secret communications. From the moment you descend to the bunker, the atmosphere changes. Narrow corridors lead to conference rooms, dormitories, offices, and even a small dining room. Everything is maintained as if Churchill's team had just left, with papers, furniture, and communication equipment from the era. You can see Churchill's famous chair and the telephone switchboard that connected London to Washington, crucial for coordinating actions with the United States. Walking through there brings the sensation of being in front of the gears of decisions that changed the course of history. Kish Underground City, Iran. On Kish Island in the Persian Gulf, there's an ancient underground structure that has gone through various phases over the centuries. Known as Karizi Kish, or Kish Underground City, it began as a network of aqueducts and channels for water collection, dating back about 2,500 years. Persian engineering was so advanced that it allowed for the excavation and construction of tunnels that provided drinking water to arid regions, taking advantage of soil layers and gravity. Over time, the site expanded and was re-qualified for tourism purposes. Today, visitors can walk through corridors illuminated by modern lanterns, admiring ancient coral fossils embedded in the walls. Part of the route reveals clear water sources and niches that formerly served to store supplies or shelter people. On very hot days, the internal temperature is naturally regulated, offering a welcome contrast to the desert heat outside. The fascination lies in seeing how such an ancient system still fulfills part of its original function, and how the engineering techniques of the time continue to be admired. Naka, Crystal Cave, Mexico. Amid the Chihuahua Desert, in northern Mexico, there's a place that seems to have come from a fantasy tale, the Naka Crystal Cave, discovered by chance by miners in 2000. It's famous for housing gigantic selenite crystals, some up to 39 feet long. The heat and humidity inside this cave are extreme. The temperature can reach 136 degrees, with almost 100% humidity, making human presence there a challenge. The explanation for the impressive size of the crystals lies in the interaction between calcium sulfate-rich water and the specific geothermal conditions of the site. Walking among these translucent formations gives the sensation of being in a crystal forest or inside a huge geode. But staying there for more than 10 minutes without protective equipment can be dangerous. Researchers conducting studies in this environment protect themselves with special clothing to withstand the extreme conditions. The cave is not open to regular tourism precisely for safety and preservation reasons. Still, the recorded images are enough to enchant anyone interested in unique places, full of scientific secrets. It's like a natural capsule that reveals the wonders hidden in the belly of the earth. Jikan's flood control system, Japan. In the underground of the Saitama region, on the outskirts of Tokyo, Japan has built one of the world's most impressive flood control systems, known as the Jikan's Project, or Metropolitan Area Outer Underground Discharge Channel. Faced with the constant risk of storms, typhoons, and river overflows, authorities invested in a colossal underground infrastructure to direct excess water, preventing floods in the capital. The system has tunnels of almost 4 miles in length and 5 enormous vertical silos, each about 230 feet deep. The jewel of this complex is a gigantic chamber that is often compared to an underground cathedral. Supported by concrete pillars, this room acts as a temporary reservoir, capable of sheltering millions of gallons of water before pumping it to a safer river. On normal days, the place is usually dry and has even served as a setting for commercials and music videos. Such is its magnificence. The ingenuity behind G-cans shows how underground architecture can also be used to save lives, dealing with the force of nature in a practical and efficient manner. Burlington Bunker, United Kingdom, not far from Corsham. In the English countryside, there's an underground complex that seems to have come out of a Cold War spy film, the Burlington Bunker. Secretly built in the 1950s, it was designed to house the British government in case of a nuclear attack. The structure had the capacity to accommodate up to 4,000 staff, with conference rooms, dormitories, communication centers, kitchens, and even a television studio for possible announcements. There were miles of corridors and tunnels, as well as a water source and an improvised hospital. For decades, the existence of this bunker was kept in absolute secrecy, receiving the code name Stockwell. Rumors circulated in the region, but only in 2004 did the government reveal official information about the site. Although it was never effectively used in emergency situations, its state of preservation still impresses. Some virtual tours, not open to the general public, show corridors that seem ready to receive people at any moment, with planning maps and even orientation signs. The Burlington Bunker is a historical portrait of an era marked by fear of nuclear annihilation, in which even underground cities were planned to survive the worst scenario. Son Iron Dung Cave, so Vietnam. Going now to Southeast Asia, we find Son Dung Cave, located in Phong Nha Bang, National Park, Vietnam. Discovered in 1991 by a local resident, it was only really explored by speleologists in 2009, when it was found to be one of the world's largest caves by volume. Its main hall reaches 650 feet in height in some sections, and there's even an internal forest with vegetation growing where sunlight penetrates through openings in the rocky ceiling. Inside the cave, there's an underground river that sculpts, unique formations, and an ecosystem almost independent from the exterior. The stalactites can reach impressive dimensions, some up to 230 feet. The place is so large that they say it could accommodate an entire block of skyscrapers. Due to environmental sensitivity, only a limited number of visitors obtain permission to enter each year, and they go through monitored expeditions to minimize damage to the untouched area. Sundung is a reminder that our planet still harbors unexplored places of surreal beauty, whose conservation depends on our respect for nature. Rock Church, Temppeliaukio, Finland. In Helsinki, Finland's capital, there's a Lutheran temple that surprises with its harmonious integration between architecture and nature. Temppeliaukio Church, popularly known as the Rock Church. Inaugurated in 1969 and designed by brothers Timo and Tuomo Suomalainen, it was built directly inside a rock massif. The copper dome, surrounded by a skylight, allows natural light to enter, while the raw stone walls offer unusual acoustics. The church frequently hosts classical and choral music concerts, as the sound there is amplified extraordinarily without the need for large audio systems. The massive rock also helps maintain the internal temperature, making the site ecologically efficient. Tourists from around the world visit Temppeliaukio to appreciate this contrast between modern design and the rusticity of Finnish granite. Besides its religious role, the space functions as a cultural attraction and a point of reflection on how human architecture can unite with the natural beauty of the underground. Stockholm Metro, Sweden. You might be wondering, can the subway also be an underground attraction? In Stockholm's case, the answer is a resounding yes. Inaugurated in the 1950s, the Swedish capital's metro became known as the world's largest underground art gallery. Several stations were excavated in raw rock, and local artists transformed these environments into colorful installations with paintings, sculptures, and mosaics that tell the history and culture of Sweden. One of the most famous stations is T-Centralen, whose walls and ceilings are decorated in shades of blue, with shapes reminiscent of leaves and human silhouettes. There's also the Solna Centrum station, dominated by intense red that contrasts with painted green forest landscapes. It's an invitation to ride the train just to admire the art and realize how the underground can be much more than a simple passage. Space. With about 100 stations, Stockholm's metro enchants both residents and tourists, showing that it's possible to transform the routine of commuting into an aesthetic and cultural experience. Carlsbad Caverns, United States. Ending our list, we return to the United States to visit Carlsbad Caverns National Park in New Mexico. These limestone formations have attracted explorers for decades and are famous for their main hall, known as the Big Room, which extends about 4,000 feet in length and 625 feet in width, with a ceiling that exceeds 230 feet in height. The dimension is so colossal that it gives the impression of being in a great underground cathedral. One of the unmissable spectacles occurs at dusk, between spring and fall. There's bat flight. Thousands of bats emerge in a swarm from the depths to feed outside, creating a living cloud that spirals in the air. At dawn, they return to the dormitories in the caves. There are various trails and guided tours for those who wish to learn more about the internal labyrinths, where stalactites and stalagmites form surreal visuals. The site is administered by the National Park Service, which maintains a conservation and environmental education infrastructure so that future generations can discover the wonders of the underground at Carlsbad. These places, each in its own way, confirm that human creativity and ingenuity, combined with nature's whims, can shape absolutely fascinating landscapes beneath our feet. From the luxury of a quarry hotel in China to the mysterious tunnels of past wars, through salt cathedrals and great cutting-edge science laboratories, there's no shortage of examples of how the underground can be much more than an inhospitable space. After learning about so many underground destinations spread around the world, we can see how each place carries unique stories, whether through the power of faith, the search for mineral riches, the need for defense in times of conflict, or simply the desire to create something new. And the most incredible thing is imagining how many places are still out there, unknown, waiting to be discovered and explored. If you enjoyed this adventure through the depths, share the discoveries with others, and don't forget to look for more photos and curiosities about each location. After all, every underground corner is an invitation to revisit our own world with a different perspective, realizing that life can be even more surprising when we descend a few feet below ground.